Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to discuss how to adjust the bracelet length of a Tag Heuer watch by removing links from the bracelet. And I'll also talk briefly about how to adjust the length of the bracelet, albeit to a relatively small extent, by adjusting the clasp. And it turns out it is a relatively simple exercise, but it is going to be significantly easier if you have a watch kit, including, for example, a pin type tool and a mallet and various other things. Now these are readily available from Amazon, and they're relatively inexpensive, and I'll link to one that I've used in the description below, but like I said, they're available for cheap on Amazon, and they're super useful. So with that in mind, let's start off with removing the bracelet links so you can see how straightforward, albeit fiddly, it is to do. So to do this, let's go around to the side of the bracelet. Now what you'll notice here is on the side of the bracelet, there are little pins holding in each of the links. Now what I'd do if I wanted to adjust the length is I'd remove the pins here and then steadily remove links. Now to do this, you'll need a little bit of a tool here, so effectively a pin here that can go in and poke this out, and some form of mallet so you can sort of hammer it in. So to do this, let's have a look. So say we go along to this link right along the side here. What we do is we put our pin in, and then we need to sort of make sure our pin is there, and then we get our mallet, and you just hammer the mallet in. Now what you'll notice here, and I'll show you this in just 1 second, is this little pin here is going right here, and we're knocking out the pin that's holding the link. And then we keep hammering it, and then eventually it will come out. Now what you'll notice is if we swing around a little bit, you'll notice right here that the link pin is coming out. Now it isn't quite out yet, however eventually we will be able to remove it. So we'll just need to keep hammering it. Now this can be a little bit laborious and it can take a little bit of time to get done, but still, there we go. Now we can start pulling it out. So I have now removed this particular pin. Now obviously one would put it somewhere safe so that it doesn't get lost, but there we go. That's what we have at the moment. Now what we'll next need to do is we'll need to perhaps remove this next link here, because what you'll notice here is I've currently undone this. However, that's not really going to change the bracelet size. I would need to remove a link for me to be able to do this. So I'll need to go through this whole process again. So what we'll do is we'll put this in here, and then I'll start hammering. And again, same basic process. To begin with, it can be a little bit tricky because it feels like the pin that we're hammering isn't directly going into the hole. But it will eventually come through, albeit it can take a little bit of time for this to happen. So that's effectively how you'd go about doing it. Now clearly, this can be time consuming. You'd want to try to measure how many links you'd remove to begin with, but nevertheless, that's how you'd go about doing it. So let's start trying to remove this second link, which appears to be giving me a little bit more resistance than the first one. This invariably will be the case, where you'll get some links and some pins that are slightly more difficult to remove than other ones. And when the watch keeps moving around, that of course does make it a little bit more tricky. You could try to hold it into a vise to keep it still. However, you do need to bear in mind that you don't want to scratch the watch when you're doing this. So let's try to remove this, and I'll fast forward ahead to when I've removed the pin so we can start putting it all back together. Okay, so I've now removed this link. Now the next question is, how do we seal the bracelet back up? Because currently it is not really going to be useful in the current situation or position that it's in. So let's try to seal it back up. Now this is more fiddly and annoying than it is difficult. The reason I say that is we effectively have the bracelet here, and then what we need to do is we need to reinsert the links together right here, but we need to get the pin, and we need to deal with multiple parts of a pin to join it back together. So to see what I mean, with this pin, and it is very difficult to do with gloves on, I have to say, with this pin what we have here is we have this small insert part, which you can notice has a hollow tube in it. We're going to need to use this hollow tube, and we're going to need to use the main pin as well. So effectively, this main longer pin is going to go through the tube, and is going to secure the whole thing together. So that's effectively what we're going to need to do here. So what I'm going to do is just turn this around here. Now I'll start off with this smaller tube, And what I'll do is I'll insert this through the middle right here. Then the next thing I'll do is I'll insert the bracelet, or move the bracelet around so that it's joined in. And then the final thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get the longer pin, and I'm going to join the longer pin through the links to try to join it back together. Now, as you can tell, this is a little bit on the fiddly and annoying side, because frankly, everything just moves around in a really, really cumbersome way, and it just makes it very annoying to join back together, which is why sometimes it can just be easier to get a professional watch place to do it, although they may or may not charge you depending on how generous they're being. So there we go, got the pin in, now we just start hammering it back in. And then hopefully this should go back into place. Always with the mallet, make sure you're using an end that isn't going to scratch the watch. And then hopefully that should be back to normal. Now what you'll notice here is it isn't totally flush. So I can keep sort of hammering that back in until it's basically flush here. Maybe just use this pin to try to push it back in a little bit more. But basically that's where we are with getting it sealed back in. And here we go. The bracelet is now together again. Always make sure that you keep your other links as well. So that's basically where we are in terms of adjusting the watch. Relatively straightforward to remove the link, is just kind of fiddly and annoying to do. But it's how to adjust the bracelet, because it adjusts the clasp, on the bracelet. So what you'll notice here is there are little pins here, and moving these pins along can be a relatively quick way to adjust how long your bracelet is. So what we'll do here to adjust this, you have the bracelet closed right here, open it up, and then what you'll need to do is you'll want to pull out this portion of the bracelet so it's totally extended. Then after you've done this, you can use your little pin tool or potentially a toothpick, but the toothpick's going to be an issue. And then you just poke in this end bit here. It will come in, it's kind of like a spring bar, right? So you poke this end bit in and then it will move along, and you can just reposition it within the various lengths. You'll obviously need to do it on both sides so that it is lined up, because otherwise it is going to not work. So there we go, I've lengthened it, or I can shorten it back as well. Again, same basic process, push it in, and then you'll be able to move the bracelet along. So that's, again, a quick way to adjust the length, but it'll only do so much, in that it effectively won't fully lengthen or shorten the bracelet, because it will only go so far. So here I am just shortening it back again to where it was. And that's, again, a relatively quick way to do it if you really want to do so. So there we go. Bracelet length adjusted both in terms of removing a link and also in terms of adjusting this bracelet clasp. Okay, so that's how you would adjust the bracelet length on a Tag Heuer. Same basic logic regardless of the model, but that's pretty much how you'd go about doing it here. I hope the video's been somewhat useful and informative to you. If there's anything else you'd like me to cover, let me know that in the comments below. And otherwise, of course, it would be great if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I hope to see you for future videos as well. Bye!